The snowy discovery. The night was white and endless, covered with heavy snow, and the wind howled through the frozen valley like a beast searching for prey. A lone human man, wrapped in a thick coat, struggled through the storm. His name was Daniel, and he lived in a small cabin far from the nearest town. He had walked out to check his hunting traps, but now he regretted it. The snow was too heavy, and the cold bit deep into his skin. Even through the fur hood and gloves, he felt the sting of winter. Every breath he took froze into a cloud, and every step sank into the snow. As he turned back toward his cabin, something strange caught his ears. It wasn't the cry of the wind, nor the crack of frozen trees. It was soft, almost broken, like a whisper carried on the storm. He stopped, listening carefully. At first he thought it was his imagination, but then it came again. Weak voices, trembling in the dark. Daniel's heart tightened. He knew the forest well. No one should be out here tonight, not in this deadly cold. Whoever it was, they wouldn't last much longer. He pushed forward, following the faint sound. His boots sank deeper as the snow grew thicker. His hands gripped the lantern he carried. The golden glow barely touched the storm, but it was enough to guide him. Then, through the swirling snow, he saw a shape. At first, he thought it was an animal, but as he moved closer, his heart stopped. Two figures lay in the snow, their bodies shivering violently. Their skin was pale, but not human pale. It carried a faint bluish tone that glimmered in the lantern light. Their clothes were torn, barely covering them, and their hair was long and tangled with ice. One of them lifted her head weakly. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark, strange and beautiful, like crystal reflecting moonlight. Her lips moved, but the words were almost too soft to hear. "Please, help us," she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel froze. He had heard stories before, strange stories of aliens wandering the edge of human lands. Some said they were dangerous. Others said they were lost refugees. He had never seen one until now. The other girl stirred, curling her arms around her sister. She looked younger, her face small and fragile. Her eyes opened slowly, glowing just like the elders. She did not speak, but her gaze begged silently for mercy. Daniel's mind raced. If he helped them, he would be bringing strangers, no aliens, into his home. If someone discovered this, it could mean danger. Hunters, soldiers, or worse could come looking. But he also saw the snow covering their thin bodies, the way their lips were turning blue, and how every breath looked like it might be their last. He knelt down in the snow, his lantern close. His voice came out low but firm. "If I leave you, here you will die." The elder sister's glowing eyes met his. Her frozen lips formed a desperate plea. "Please, don't leave us." For a moment Daniel hesitated. His cabin was small, barely enough for himself. He had little food stored for winter. He wasn't ready to take care of anyone else, especially not two alien strangers, but something deep inside told him he could not walk away. He had seen death before, and he would not allow it to take them tonight. Without another word, he slipped his arms under the younger girl first. She was light, far too light. Her body felt like a bundle of sticks, wrapped in ice. She let out a weak sound as he lifted her, but she did not resist. He set her against his chest and turned to the elder. She tried to rise but collapsed back into the snow. Daniel bent down and picked her up too. His muscles strained under the weight of carrying them both, but his will was stronger. The storm roared louder, as if the world itself tried to stop him. His lantern swung, throwing wild shadows across the snow. But he did not stop. Step by step he pushed through. The cabin was still far, but he knew the path. The sisters clung weakly to him, their frozen hands barely able to grip. One of them whispered into his coat, her voice shaking. "Human. Why, help us." Daniel only answered with a single breathless word. "Because no one else will." At last, through the curtain of white, his cabin appeared, a small wooden shelter glowing faintly with the promise of fire and safety. He stumbled toward it, his body burning with exhaustion, but he refused to fall. He kicked the door open with his boot, snow rushing in with him. Inside, warmth waited, the fire still alive in the stone hearth. He laid the younger sister gently near the fire, then placed the elder beside her. Both of them gasped as the heat touched their frozen skin. Their glowing eyes flickered with life. Daniel quickly threw more wood into the fire, the flames rising higher. He pulled blankets from his bed and wrapped them around the two girls. Their shivers were violent, but slowly, they began to ease. Daniel stood back, breathing heavily. His mind was still racing. He had just carried two alien sisters into his home. He had no idea who they were or why they were here. But one thing was certain. His life had just changed. Forever. And outside in the blizzard, the storm raged on, as if hiding something darker yet to come. Shelter of firelight. The fire burned brighter, filling the small cabin with flickering orange light. Daniel stood by the hearth, his breath still. Heavy from carrying the sisters, snow clung to his coat, melting into droplets that ran down his boots. The storm outside howled against the wooden walls. But here, inside, there was warmth. The two alien sisters lay wrapped in blankets, curled close to the flames. Their bluish skin, once pale like death, slowly gained faint color. Their glowing eyes flickered open and closed as if fighting to stay awake. Daniel knelt beside them, placing a small pot of water over the fire. He dropped in herbs he had gathered from the valley, a simple tea to warm the blood. He wasn't sure if it would help aliens the same way it helped humans, but it was all he could offer. The elder sister stirred, her lips trembling as she whispered, Where are we?" "You're safe," Daniel said quietly. "This is my cabin. You're far from the village, far from anyone who might find you." She turned her glowing eyes toward him, staring for a long moment. Her voice was weak, but there was a strange strength beneath it. "You should not have helped us, human." Daniel frowned. "If I left you there, you'd be dead by now." The younger sister shifted under the blanket, coughing softly. Her small voice broke the silence. "Sana, I'm still cold." Daniel blinked, realizing she had spoken the elder's name. So the elder sister was called Sana, and the younger must be. "My name is Leary," the younger whispered as if she read his thoughts. Her eyes, though weak, carried innocence. She looked at him as though searching for trust. "Thank you, human." Daniel gave a short nod. He set a wooden cup before Sana and Leary, filled with steaming tea. "Drink this, it will help." Sana hesitated, her hand trembling. She stared at the cup as though it might be poison. Her instincts told her not to trust. But Leary reached out first, her small hands wrapping around the warm cup. She sipped and let out a tiny sigh. The steam rose over her frost-bitten lips. Sana finally drank too, keeping her glowing eyes fixed on Daniel the whole time, as though judging every move he made. The fire cracked, filling the silence. Outside, the storm screamed. Inside, three strangers shared a fragile warmth. Daniel sat across from them, his hands resting on his knees. His mind turned over questions he dared not ask. Who were they? Why were they here? And why did they seem so hunted? Finally, he broke the silence. "You were out there in the snow. Were you running from someone?" Sana's eyes narrowed slightly, her lips pressed tight. She looked at Leary, who was half asleep under the blanket. Then she answered in a low voice. "Yes, we escaped." "Escaped from what?" Daniel asked carefully. Sana's gaze flickered toward the door as if expecting it to burst open any moment. "From those who would use us as property." Daniel felt a chill crawl up his spine, not from the cold but from her words. Property. That meant slavery. Or worse, Leary whimpered softly, shifting in her sleep. Sana pulled the blanket closer around her sister and whispered, something in a tongue Daniel could not understand. It sounded musical yet broken, ancient yet fragile. Then Sana looked back at him. "You risked much by helping us, human. If they find us here, they will not spare you." Daniel let out a slow breath. "Let them come," he said. "I don't regret saving you." For the first time, Sana's hard expression softened. Her glowing eyes blinked, almost in disbelief. Then she lowered her head, whispering, "Why?" Daniel stared at the fire, his face shadowed by the flames. "Because I know what it means to be left in the cold." Sana said nothing, but her silence carried weight, as if she understood. Time passed, the storm outside refusing to end. Hours stretched, and the cabin grew quiet except for the crackle of fire. Daniel checked the window. Nothing but swirling snow and darkness. But still unease stirred in his chest. As he turned back, he caught Sana watching him. Her eyes glowed softly, not with suspicion now, but with a strange curiosity. She studied the way he moved, the way his shoulders bore the weight of solitude. Finally, she whispered, "You are alone here?" "Yes," Daniel answered simply. "I chose this life." Sana tilted her head slightly. "Or did this life choose you?" Before he could answer, a sound outside shattered the silence, a heavy thud against the wooden wall. Then another, closer to the door. Daniel stiffened. His hand went to the axe resting near the hearth. Sana's glowing eyes widened. She pulled, Leary closer, whispering urgently, "They found us." The cabin door rattled as if someone pressed against it from the other side. A shadow moved across the window. Blocking the storm's light for a moment, Daniel's heartbeat quickened. He gripped the axe tightly. He knew at that moment. The strangers Sana had warned him about were real. They were here, and they wanted the sisters back. Sana's voice was low but sharp. "If they see us, they will take us, human. You must choose, hide us or let us die." Daniel looked at her, then at Leary's fragile form trembling under the blanket. His jaw tightened. His decision was already made. He motioned, quickly, pulling back a wooden panel in the floor, a hidden storage space he had used for years. "Get in," he whispered harshly. "Now." Sana hesitated for only a moment, then lifted Leary into her arms. The younger sister stirred weakly, her glowing eyes half closed. Together they slipped into the darkness below. Daniel closed the E panel just as the door shook violently. The fire flickered, the wind roared, and Daniel stood alone, axe in hand, staring at the door as the knock came again, louder this time. The sisters' secret. The door shook under a heavy fist. Daniel's grip on the axe tightened. His heart pounded in his chest. The storm howled outside. But this sound was sharper, filled with intent. "Open up," a harsh voice demanded, muffled by the wind and wood. "We saw footprints, don't make us break it down." Daniel forced his breathing steady. He glanced at the fire, at the panel in the floor where the sisters were hidden. He knew if he showed fear, it was over. Slowly, he moved to the door, lifting the wooden bar that kept it closed. The door creaked as he pulled it open just enough for the storm to rush in. Two tall figures stood outside, cloaked in heavy furs, but their faces glimmered faintly with the same bluish tint he had seen on the sisters. Their eyes glowed in the darkness, sharp and cold. "Human," one of them growled. "Have you seen two females pass through here? Sisters, young, weak, they belong to us." Daniel leaned against the doorframe, his axe resting casually in his hand, though his muscles were tight. "No one's come by," he said firmly. "No one would be foolish enough to be out in this storm." The hunters exchanged a look. One sniffed the air as though he could sense something. His glowing eyes narrowed. "Strange," he muttered. "Their trail ends here." Daniel held his ground, letting silence stretch. Snow swirled between them. The fire inside flickered behind him, casting long shadows across the hunters' faces. Finally, the taller one spat on the snow. "If you see them, you will tell us, human." His voice was heavy with threat. "Or when we return, you will regret it." Without waiting for a reply, they turned, vanishing into the storm like predators fading back into the wild. Daniel shut the door quickly, dropping the bar back into place. He leaned against it for a moment, breathing hard. His knuckles were white on the axe handle. The fire crackled softly, the only sound in the cabin now. He moved back to the hearth, knelt, and tapped on the wooden panel. Slowly, it lifted, and Sana's glowing eyes peered out. "They're gone," Daniel whispered. "For now." Sana climbed out, carrying Leary in her arms. The younger sister was trembling, half-conscious. "I knew they would find us." Sana muttered, her voice low but edged with anger. They never stop hunting. Daniel frowned. Who are they? Sana laid Leary gently near the fire again. Her eyes glowed brighter in the light. She turned to Daniel, her face caught between pride and sorrow. They are hunters from our clan, she said slowly. Once my family ruled them. My father was their leader, but he was betrayed, murdered, and we were marked as spoils, prizes to be taken. Daniel felt a cold weight settle in his chest. Prizes? Sana's lips pressed tight. In our law, daughters of fallen leaders are claimed by whoever is strongest. They would breed us, use us, until nothing of us is left. That is why we ran. That is why they hunt us. Leary stirred weakly, her voice barely a whisper. Sana, I'm scared. Sana knelt beside her sister, smoothing her tangled hair. Her hard expression softened as she whispered, I won't let them take you, little star. Daniel watched the scene in silence. His grip on the axe loosened. He had saved them from the snow, but now he realized he had stepped into something much larger. He wasn't just hiding two lost girls. He was protecting fugitives marked by their own kind. Sana looked at him again, her eyes burning with a strange fire. You should not have helped us, human. Now you are in danger too. Daniel shrugged, his voice steady. I've lived with danger before, I'll survive this too. For a long moment Sana studied him. Her glowing eyes searched his face as though trying to measure his soul. Finally, she asked, Why? Why do you risk yourself for us? We are not your kind, we bring you nothing but trouble. Daniel stared into the flames, the orange glow painting lines of weariness across his face. Because no one deserves to be hunted like animals, he said quietly. Because if I were out there in the snow, I'd hope someone would choose to help me. Sana's lips parted, but no words came. Something flickered in her gaze. Doubt, surprise, maybe even respect. She lowered her head, whispering, You are strange, for a human. Hours passed, the storm still raging outside. Leary fell into deeper sleep, her breathing steadier now. Sana sat near her, but her eyes often drifted to Daniel, watching the way he moved, the way he tended the fire, the way his shoulders carried both burden and strength. Finally, as the night stretched on, she spoke again, her voice softer than before. In our culture there is a law, one older than the hunters, older than betrayal. It says that if a man saves sisters from certain death, those sisters owe him everything, even their lives. Daniel looked at her, his brows furrowed. Everything? Sana's glowing eyes did not waver. Yes, human. You saved us, that means by our bond you are now ours. Daniel blinked, his grip tightening on the wooden mug he held. He wasn't sure if she meant it as gratitude, warning, or a promise, before he could speak. The wind outside shifted, carrying faint voices through the cracks in the cabin walls. The hunters were still out there, circling like wolves. Sana moved closer to him, her glowing eyes sharp. They will return, she whispered, and when they do, you must choose. Will you stand with us, or hand us over? The fire hissed as a log cracked in the heat. Daniel stared into the flames, his mind heavy with the weight of her words. Outside, the storm carried secrets, but inside the cabin, a new bond had begun to form, one that could change all three of their lives forever. The chase. Begin's morning came slowly, but the storm had not ended. The snow outside was deep, the wind still wild. Daniel stood near the cabin window, watching the gray light spread across the valley. His eyes scanned the horizon, but he knew the hunters were still out there, hidden in the storm like wolves waiting for weakness. Behind him, the sisters stirred. Leary coughed softly under the blanket, while Sana sat upright, her glowing eyes alert. She had not slept. Daniel could see it in her sharp gaze. She was watching him as much as the storm. They will come again, Sana said, her voice steady but heavy. Hunters never give up, especially not when their prey belongs to their law. Daniel turned, gripping the axe handle in his hand. Then we prepare. Sana tilted her head, almost curious. Prepare? Against them? You are only one man, human. They are trained, they are many. Daniel's jaw tightened. Maybe so, but this is my land. This is my home. If they think they can take it from me, they'll learn otherwise. Her eyes narrowed, but she did not argue. Instead, she looked down at her sister, gently pulling the blanket higher around Leary's small shoulders. She cannot run, not yet, Sana whispered. Her body is still weak. If they come, she will not survive the chase. Daniel felt the weight of her words. He glanced at Leary, the girl breathing softly, fragile as glass. He knew Sana spoke the truth. If the hunters broke in, the younger sister would be the first to fall. The cabin creaked under the wind. The fire crackled. Daniel's mind turned quickly. There's an old mine tunnel north of here, he said at last. It hasn't been used in years. It leads deep into the mountain. If we can reach it, the hunters won't find you. Sana's eyes glowed faintly in the firelight. You would leave your home for us? Daniel met her gaze. What use is a home if I let people die inside it? For a moment, Sana's expression softened, but then her sharpness returned. You are strange, human. Strange and reckless. Before Daniel could reply, a sound outside shattered the fragile calm. The crunch of boots on snow. Many boots closing in. Daniel's blood went cold. He rushed to the window and peered out. Shadows moved between the trees, dark shapes pushing against the storm. At least 4, maybe more. They've found us, he muttered, gripping the axe tighter. Sana's eyes blazed. She stood, wrapping the blanket tighter around her sister. If they enter, they will not leave without blood. Daniel's heart pounded. He looked at the sisters, one too weak to fight, the other fierce but exhausted, and he knew he had only one choice. Go to the back, he said sharply. There's a small hatch. It leads to the forest path. You'll take it and run toward the mine. I'll hold them here as long as I can. Sana froze, staring at him as if she could not believe what she heard. You would fight them alone? Daniel's voice was like steel. I said I'd protect you, didn't I? Before Sana could answer, the cabin door shook violently. A booming voice roared through the storm. Open this door, human! We know you hide them inside. Leary whimpered under her blanket. Sana pulled her close, her jaw tight. She looked at Daniel, her glowing eyes burning with something between fear and admiration. Daniel moved to the door, planting his boots firmly. On the wooden floor, his axe gleamed in the firelight. He whispered quickly, Go, Sana. Take her now. Sana hesitated only a moment, then nodded. She lifted her sister into her arms. Leary's glowing eyes fluttered open, her weak voice whispering, Don't leave him, Sana. Sana pressed her lips together. He will follow, little star. He must. The door slammed again, the bar across it groaning under the force. Daniel looked back one last time. His eyes met Sana's, and in that brief moment no words were needed. Then she was gone, slipping through the hatch with her sister into the snowstorm. The door burst open, splinters flying. 4 hunters stormed inside, their glowing eyes blazing. In the firelight, their tall forms filled the cabin like shadows from a nightmare. Daniel raised his axe, his voice steady though his heart raced. You'll find no prey here. The tallest hunter snarled, stepping forward. Foolish human, do you think you can stand against us? Daniel swung the axe in a hard arc. The blade bit into the wooden table, sending shards flying. The hunters paused, surprised by his boldness. Try me, Daniel growled. The fire roared behind him. The storm screamed outside, and for a moment, the cabin became a battleground. The hunters lunged, their blades flashing in the firelight. Daniel swung his axe with fury, striking one across the shoulder. Another crashed into him, sending them both slamming against the wall. The cabin shook with the force of their fight, but Daniel fought like a man who had nothing left to lose. His muscles burned, his breath came in ragged gasps. Still, he did not falter. Each strike, each step was not for himself, but for the sisters running through the storm. Outside, Sana staggered through the snow. Leary clutched against her chest. The younger girl's glowing eyes blinked weakly as she whispered, He's fighting for us. Yes, Sana muttered, her breath ragged. And we must live for him. Behind them, the cabin shook with the fury of battle. Sparks from the fire burst into the night as wood cracked and splintered. The chase had begun, and there was no turning. Back the dangerous choice, the cabin walls shook as the hunters clashed with Daniel. The fire roared wildly, sparks leaping into the air as wood splintered under the weight of battle. Daniel's axe swung again and again, his muscles screaming with each strike. But there were too many. Blades flashed, cutting into his coat. Blood, staining the fabric. Daniel stumbled back, his chest heaving. Still, his eyes burned with defiance. "You'll never have them," he spat, his voice ragged. The lead hunter snarled, glowing eyes sharp as knives. "They are ours, human. They belong to us by law." Daniel gritted his teeth, gripping the axe tighter. "Not while I live." The hunters advanced, surrounding him. He fought like a man possessed, every strike buying the sisters more time to escape. Yet deep down, he knew he could not hold forever. With a roar, the tallest hunter slammed into him. The axe was knocked from Daniel's grip, crashing across the floor. The hunter's blade pressed against his chest, inches from piercing his heart. The firelight reflected in Daniel's eyes. He refused to look away. If this was his end, then so be it. At least the sisters would live. But before the hunter could strike, a sharp cry cut through the storm outside. A sound that froze even the hunters for a moment. It was Sana, her voice carrying through the blizzard. "Daniel." The hunters turned sharply, sensing the sisters' trail outside. One hissed, "They are still close." In that brief distraction, Daniel moved. He slammed his boot into the hunter's knee, wrenching himself free. His hand shot to the axe, pulling it back into his grip. With a fierce swing, he drove the hunters back. They hissed in anger, but instead of finishing Daniel, they rushed for the broken doorway, their glowing eyes locked on the sisters' fading trail in the snow. Daniel's heart pounded. He wanted to collapse, but he forced his body forward. He couldn't stop now. Not when they were still in danger. He stumbled into the storm, snow biting at his wounds. Ahead, dark figures moved quickly, chasing two smaller shadows through the endless white. Sana carried Leary in her arms, her legs trembling with exhaustion. Leary's glowing eyes were half shut, her weak breaths fogging in the air. "Faster," Sana whispered to herself, forcing her body onward. But the hunters were gaining, their long strides cutting through the snow with deadly speed. Daniel pushed harder, every breath agony. His axe felt heavier than ever, but he would not stop. He roared into the storm, his voice cutting through the blizzard. "Keep running." The sisters turned at the sound, their eyes wide. He was bloodied, half broken, yet still coming, still fighting for them. But the hunters were too close. One leapt forward, his hand outstretched, reaching for Sana's arm. Daniel threw himself. Between them, the axe flashing in the dim light. Steel met flesh. The hunter howled, stumbling back into the snow. The others circled, their glowing eyes filled with fury. They wanted the sisters, but Daniel stood like an unmovable wall. Sana's breath came fast, her voice sharp. "You'll die if you face them alone." Daniel glanced at her, his face pale but unshaken. Then, "I'll die standing." Leary stirred weakly in her sister's arms, her soft voice trembled. "Don't let him die, Sana. Please." Sana's jaw tightened, her glowing eyes blazing with sudden fire. She laid her sister gently behind a fallen tree and stood beside Daniel. For the first time, she raised her own hands, not weak, not helpless, but glowing with strange energy. The hunters paused, surprised. "You dare fight us?" One hissed. Sana's voice rang through the storm, fierce and unyielding. "We are no one's property, not anymore." Her hands burst with light, a force that shot forward like a wave. The snow exploded outward, throwing one hunter to the ground. Another staggered back, his cloak torn by the blast. Daniel's eyes widened, but he did not waste the moment. He swung his axe with renewed strength, striking down the wounded hunter. Blood splattered across the snow, steam rising in the icy air. The remaining hunters snarled, their glowing eyes burning with hatred. "You cannot escape, sisters. The bond law is clear. Whoever saves you owns you, and you know it." Daniel froze for a moment, his chest heaving. He looked at Sana, confused. "What are they talking about?" Sana's face darkened, her voice heavy with shame. It is true, human. In our law, the one who saves us claims us. That is why they hunt us, to bind us, to own us. Daniel's grip tightened on the axe. His voice was hard. I didn't save you for that. Sana's glowing eyes locked on his, her breath trembling. But you did save us, that means we belong to you now, whether you want it or not. The storm screamed around them. The hunters circled once more, waiting for weakness. Daniel's chest rose and fell. His body was broken. His blood stained the snow. And yet his voice was steady. Then I choose. If you belong to me, you belong as free women, not prisoners. Sana's eyes widened, her lips parting. The words struck deeper than the cold, deeper than the storm. The hunters growled, sensing their control slipping. No, human can rewrite our law. Daniel lifted his axe again, his voice cutting through the night like thunder. Then I'll break your law myself. With Sana at his side, light glowing from her hands and Leary's weak eyes watching from the snow, Daniel prepared for the fight that would decide not just their survival but their future. The dangerous choice had been made. Flight through the blizzard. Snow whipped through the valley like knives of ice. Daniel's chest rose and fell with ragged breaths. His axe was heavy in his hand. Sana stood beside him, her glowing eyes burning with defiance, while little Leary lay behind the fallen tree, too weak to rise. The hunters regrouped, circling them, like wolves. Their glowing eyes glared with fury. Their voices hissed through the storm. You cannot run forever, sisters. You cannot fight us all. Daniel's body ached, wounds burning from the earlier fight. But his grip on the axe did not loosen. He took one step forward, shielding the sisters with his body. Try and take them, he growled. The hunters lunged again, blades flashing. Daniel swung hard, the axe meeting steel with a sharp crack. Sana's hands glowed, sending out bursts of light that pushed the attackers back. Still, there were two. Many, for every strike Daniel landed, another came from behind. Sana cried out, her strength faltering. Daniel caught her by the arm, pulling her away from a blade meant for her chest. We can't hold them here, he shouted. She nodded, her breath heavy. The mine. Take us there. Daniel didn't waste another moment. He grabbed Leary into his arms, her fragile body light against his chest. Sana stayed close, her hands glowing faintly as she turned to blast snow into the hunter's path. Go, Daniel roared, pushing through the blizzard. His boots sank into the snow, every step a battle. But he did not stop. Behind them, the hunters gave chase, their voices sharp through the storm. Run, pray, run. You cannot escape. The blizzard thickened, swallowing sight. Daniel's lantern had been lost back in the cabin. The world around them was white chaos. Only instinct guided his steps. He knew the mine was close, hidden near the ridge of the mountain. Sana stumbled beside him, her breath ragged. Her glowing eyes scanned the storm. There! She pointed with a trembling hand. Through the snow, Daniel caught sight of a dark shape in the distance, an opening, jagged and black against the endless white, the mine. Daniel pushed harder, his legs screaming, his arms ached as he held Leary close, but he would not let her fall. He could feel her faint heartbeat against his chest. He could not let it stop. The hunters closed in, shadows moving fast across the snow. Their glowing eyes pierced through the storm like predators. One leapt, landing in front of Daniel, a curved blade flashing. Daniel swung his axe. Steel clashed. Against steel? The hunter snarled, forcing him back. Sana screamed, her hands bursting with light. She hurled a blast into the hunter's chest, throwing him into the snow. Daniel wasted no time, dragging the sisters forward again. The mine loomed. Larger now, the dark mouth opening like salvation. Or a trap. Daniel reached it, stumbling inside. The sudden darkness swallowed them. Only the faint glow from the sisters' eyes lit the tunnel walls. The air inside was damp and cold, but it shielded them from the storm. Sana leaned against the wall, her chest heaving. We made it. For now. Daniel set Leary down gently on the rocky ground. Her glowing eyes fluttered open. She whispered weakly. It's so dark. Daniel knelt beside her, brushing ice from her hair. You're safe. he said softly. Though his own heart doubted the words, the sound of footsteps echoed outside. The hunters had reached the mine, their voices carried down the tunnel. They're here. The prey hides like rats in the dark. Sana's eyes widened. She turned to Daniel, her voice urgent. The mine is deep but dangerous. There are shafts and drops. If we go too far, we may never find our way back. Daniel lifted his axe, standing tall despite the pain. Better, lost in the dark than caught in their hands. He helped Sana rise, then lifted Leary into his arms again. Together they moved deeper into the tunnel, their steps echoing against the stone. The further they went, the colder it became. Water dripped from the ceiling, and the ground grew uneven. The faint glow of the sisters' eyes lit jagged rocks and old wooden beams that had not been touched in years. Behind them, the hunters' footsteps drew closer. Their glowing eyes flickered in the darkness like sparks of fire. Daniel's mind raced. They couldn't keep running forever. At some point the hunters would catch them, and then he glanced at Sana. Her face glistened with sweat, her glowing eyes fierce despite exhaustion. She met his gaze and whispered, "If they catch us, promise me one thing. Don't let them take Leary." Daniel's jaw tightened. "They won't take either of you." Sana shook her head, her voice sharp with truth. "You cannot fight them all, human. You are strong, but even strength has limits." Daniel looked down at Leary in his arms, her fragile body trembling even in sleep. His heart clenched. He knew Sana was right. He was only one man, but something inside him refused to surrender. The tunnel split ahead into two paths. One sloped upward, the other plunged deeper into blackness. Daniel stopped, his breath fogging in the cold air. "Which way?" he asked quickly. Sana stared into the darkness, her glowing eyes searching. Finally, she whispered, "Down. If we go deeper, they will lose us." Daniel hesitated only a moment, then moved, carrying Leary down the steeper path. Sana followed. Her steps unsteady but determined. Behind them the hunters roared, their voices echoing. "You cannot hide, you belong to us." The sisters' eyes glowed brighter in the dark, guiding Daniel through the jagged rocks. The tunnel grew narrower, forcing him to duck as he carried Leary. His shoulders scraped against stone, his arms burned with exhaustion. Finally, the tunnel opened into a vast cavern. Stalactites hung like teeth from the ceiling, and a frozen underground river cut across the stone floor. Daniel set Leary down gently, his chest heaving. Sana knelt beside her sister, holding her hand tightly. The sound of footsteps grew louder. The hunters were entering the cavern, their glowing eyes spreading across the darkness. Daniel gripped his axe, his voice low but steady. "No more running." Sana's eyes glowed fiercely as she rose to stand beside him. "Then we fight together." The blizzard outside raged on, but inside the cavern the true storm was about to begin. The final claim. The cavern echoed with the sound of dripping water and heavy footsteps. The hunters were closing in, their glowing eyes cutting through the darkness. Daniel stood at the edge of the frozen river, his axe gripped tight in his hands. Sana stood beside him, her hands faintly glowing, and little Leary lay against the stone, too weak to rise. The hunters spread out across the cavern. Their voices hissed with hunger. "There is no escape, sisters. The law is clear. Whoever claims you owns you." Daniel's voice cut through the cold air, steady despite the pain in his chest. "No one owns them." The lead hunter sneered, his glowing eyes narrowing. "Human, you fight like a fool. Do you not understand? Their law binds them. They cannot refuse us." Sana's glowing eyes blazed with fire. She stepped forward, her voice sharp and defiant. "We refuse you now. We refuse the law itself." The hunters laughed, the sound echoing like knives against stone. "You cannot break the law, little sister. You are too weak. You were born to be taken." Daniel's grip tightened on the axe. His voice thundered in the cavern. "Then let your law break on me." The hunters roared and charged. Their blades flashed in the dim light. Daniel met them head-on, his axe swinging with all the fury left in his body. Steel clashed against steel, sparks flying. The cavern shook with every strike. One hunter lunged low, his blade grazing Daniel's leg. Pain shot through him, but he did not fall. He slammed the axe down, splitting the ground and sending shards of ice flying. Sana raised her hands, light bursting outward in a wave. The cavern lit up with her power, forcing the hunters to stumble back. Their cloaks burned in the glow, their glowing eyes narrowed. In rage, but they came again, stronger, faster. Daniel fought like a man possessed. His body was torn, blood dripping into the snow. But each swing of his axe was fueled by one thought. They will not take the sisters. Leary stirred weakly, her small voice trembling in the cavern. Daniel, please, don't leave us. Her words struck deeper than any blade. Daniel's arms burned with new strength. He roared, his axe slamming into a hunter's chest. The body collapsed onto the ice. The remaining hunters hesitated, seeing their comrade fall, but the leader stepped forward, his glowing eyes burning like fire. Enough games, he growled. He raised a massive curved blade, its edge shimmering in the dim light. Daniel steadied himself, his chest heaving. Sana stood beside him, her glowing hands trembling but ready. The leader sneered. You cannot. Save them both, human. You must choose. One sister or none. The words cut like ice. Sana's breath caught. Her glowing eyes flickered as she looked at Daniel. For a moment the cavern seemed to freeze. Daniel looked at Sana, then at Leary lying fragile on the stone. His voice was steady, firm. I already chose. He raised the axe high, charging with all the strength he had left. The leader swung his massive blade, but Daniel's strike came first. The axe crashed into the hunter's chest, shattering armor. The force sent both men tumbling across the ice. The cavern echoed with the sound. Silence followed. The leader fell, his glowing eyes fading into darkness. The other hunters froze. Their law had been broken. Their leader defeated. Without a word, they backed away, their glowing eyes dimming in fear. Slowly, one by one, they disappeared into the tunnels, vanishing like shadows. The cavern grew quiet. Only the sound of dripping. Water remained. Daniel lay on the ice, his body trembling, blood staining his coat. Sana rushed to him, dropping to her knees, her glowing hands pressed against his wounds. Stay with us, human, she whispered, her voice breaking. You cannot leave now. Not after everything. Daniel coughed, his lips curling into a faint smile. Told you, I wouldn't let them take you. Sana's glowing eyes shimmered with tears. For the first time, her hard mask cracked. She leaned close, her voice trembling. You saved us, Daniel. By our law, we belong to you now. Daniel shook his head, weakly. I don't want you as property, I want you free. But Sana pressed her glowing forehead against his, whispering, Then we are free. With you. Behind them, Leary stirred, her glowing eyes soft and full of light. Her voice, weak, but sure, echoed in the cavern. Then it's true. He is our bond. Daniel's chest rose and fell slowly, his strength fading. But as he looked at the two sisters, something stirred in him. A warmth stronger than fire. Outside, the storm began to break. Light pierced through cracks in the mine ceiling. Casting a soft glow over them, Sana and Leary knelt beside him, both their glowing hands resting over his. Their voices joined, trembling but certain. By the old law, and by our choice, you are ours. Daniel closed his eyes, his hand gripping theirs. His voice was faint but steady. And you are mine. The cavern seemed to breathe with them. The storm outside faded, and though danger still lingered in the world in that moment, under the glow of alien eyes and human strength, the bond was sealed. The final claim was made, not of chains or slavery, but of trust, survival, and something far deeper.